Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And we're going to be talking about my favorite cultured food today. And we're going to talk about all the frequently asked questions about it so I can help you make it easily with all the knowledge and understanding that I've gained over the last 20 years of making this every single day. And kefir is hands down my favorite cultured food. It has the most probiotic strains of any cultured food, which is about 50 plus. And that's kind of important because when you get that many different strains, and there's good bacteria and good yeast in there too, it makes it a super powerful food. And it's much more potent in probiotics than, say, yogurt. So most yogurts have anywhere from 1 to 7. Most of the time, it's about 3 probiotics in them. And the one thing about kefir is that these all work together to make kefir in a kind of a powerful way where bacteria like room to grow. So if they get overpowered by one, then that one dominates, and then you don't get as many of the others, whereas kefir's kind of got everything in balance because it does it naturally, and it's naturally occurring that way. It's not like they put a bunch of strains in there. This is just the way kefir grains are. They are just combinations of good bacteria and yeast, and they're one of the foods that I think works the best when you have different combinations together because they're naturally occurring that way. And when I first tried kefir, it made me so well that it started me on a journey to learn all about it. And it's a living food, and it can change in texture and taste. And as it adjusts to these changing, fluctuating temperatures in our home, fermentation time, the types of milk you use, the consistency can change. So before you think things have gone awry and throw out your kefir, I really want you to check out my FAQ page, my frequently asked questions page, or contact me because I hate it when people throw out their grains before they talk to me or before they check this page because often it's something that can be easily corrected. And I really, really want you guys to make good kefir. I've been doing this for such a long time and I really know a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people out there teaching about fermentation right now, because it's very popular, but very few of them have been doing it as long as I have. And I know what works, what doesn't work. I have a lot of experience because I really love this food. I love what it has done for my life and for the people that I have given it to and worked with and the people who write me. It's just an incredible food. So I feel like it's my job to help people make good kefir and to keep these grains alive and reproducing so that we can keep them around on this planet forever. So if anybody knows what to do, it's me. So if you don't know what to do, check out this FAQ page because there's a lot of things in here. And if still don't see it, then contact me. And you can do that at culturefoodlife.com and just hit the contact button and send me an email. And I've got a bunch of people that know what they're doing that we can help. And if they don't know, they come to me and we answer everybody's questions because it's important. So that's my little mission on this earth, is to preserve these little kefir grains for generations to come. And scientists have tried to make these little guys, these little kefir grains, and they have failed every single time. They can't reproduce them. And so it's, one of those things is that I don't want people to throw out their grains if any way I could help them to get them going and make good kefir, it can change your life because it certainly has changed mine. So here are some of the things that kefir has done for me personally. Kefir has lowered my blood pressure. It helps keep my blood sugars normal. It helps with acid reflux for my husband. It helps me with seasonal allergies. It helps detox and maintains balance in my body. It helps lower cholesterol, and it has a very calming sense on my nervous system. There's a lot of calcium and magnesium in kefir, and so it has a very calming effect. And so these are just 7 of the reasons that I have kefir every day. And I have a article about that if you want to see the detail, because I have a lot of research now to back up why it does these things for me. And for so many hundreds and thousands of people, it has done the same thing. And I have research has kind of caught up with what happened. Because in the beginning, I didn't know why it did that, why it helped with blood pressure. I didn't know why it did that until many years later, research started showing up that this is why it works on lowering blood sugars, because it works on an enzyme in the stomach that's like an ACE inhibitor drug that naturally helps keep your blood sugar in balance. And I didn't know any of that until many, many years later. So now I have the research to back it up. And these little kefir grains sit on my counter and make me kefir effortlessly every day takes them 24 hours. And they do it again and again, and they grow and multiply, and they have made all the difference in my life. Okay, so let's get to the questions. The first question that I get asked a lot is, what kind of milk can I use to make kefir? Now, you can make kefir with a variety of milks: dairy, goat milk, non-dairy milk. Most milk types are acceptable, including whole milk, fat-reduced, non-fat milk, pasteurized, homogenized. All of those milks are acceptable. Fresh, raw cow's milk is wonderful and delicious to make kefir with. And let me tell you something about that. When you're using raw milk has its own types of bacteria in it because it's not been heated or pasteurized. So sometimes those good bacteria in there too can compete a little bit with kefir. So it may take a little bit more time to make it, maybe a few hours. Or the texture may be a little different the first couple times you make it. But that will resolve itself quite easily as you keep making it. Don't use ultra pasteurized milk. Ultra pasteurized milk is different than pasteurized. I use pasteurized milk all the time to make kefir and it's fine. But ultra pasteurized milk doesn't do very well because a lot of the organic milks are ultra pasteurized. And so what happens when something is ultra pasteurized, it's heated at a really high temperature, longer than regular milk. So it causes kind of some problems with people because the enzymes, everything's destroyed in it because it's heated for so long. And so then it has a hard time making kefir because everything is essentially dead in the milk. So now there are some ultra pasteurized milks that do make kefir. So you're just going to have to test it if you want to get the, organic milk that's ultra pasteurized. You're going to have to test it. I don't know which brands do good and which don't because they keep changing them. So one thing I do know is that when you do fermentation removes pesticides and chemicals from milk. It's pretty powerful. And it does that in vegetables, and it does it in kefir, and it does it in kombucha. That's one of the benefits of fermentation, is that it essentially gets rid of those chemicals and things that are in the milk that cause people to not want to buy that type of thing. So I've been doing it with between raw and pasteurized milk 20 years. And all different, sometimes whole milk, sometimes 2%. I change it all the time and it works fine. Now, non-dairy milk works good too, but most nut milks are made with a lot of water. So it's going to be very watery. So I have a whole article on 17 different types of non-dairy kefir, coconut, almond, flax, oats, everything. And so you need to read those to know exactly how to do it. Because there's a few little things you got to do different with non-dairy milk if you want to make kefir with these types of nut milks. Because it does change the texture and consistency. So I encourage you to go check that out. And I'll put the link description below. Okay. Number 2. This is one of the biggest questions I get. Why is my milk kefir starting to separate into whey and curds or curdling? And that is probably it is the number one question I get. And this can happen for several reasons. If the grains are growing or the temperature's gotten warmer or you've changed the milk, it can separate into whey and curds. Now, number one thing, it is not a bad thing that it's done that. It just means it's a little over fermented. So don't throw it out because a lot of people throw it out, which drives me crazy. You can use it and you can shake it up and put it in a smoothie and it works really good. Kefir grains are extremely active and strong. They multiply quickly, and before you know it, your grains are going to need more milk because they double in size every week. Healthy grains should double in size every week if you make kefir every day. And so they'll start fermenting so fast, and you'll think your kefir is not done because it's thin tasting or looks thin, when actually the opposite is happening. It's over fermented. And if the grains have increased and you've not added enough milk, they will ferment the milk fast, and you'll begin to notice that the kefir is ready faster than it used to be. And then the longer it sits, it will separate into whey and curds. And that creates a panic for people. They think they've done something wrong, that many people throw it out, which drives me crazy. So don't do that. It's still good. First, let me say it's never ruined. It's just really fermented and very sour. And that's one of two things that happens. It gets thin and it gets really sour. So now, Here's the deal. That is the number one way to tell if your kefir is working is if it tastes sour. The texture, it usually gets thick, but if you over-ferment it gets thin, so people think it's not done. The best way to tell if your kefir is done is to taste it. If it's sour tasting, it's done. So first, if you have too many grains for the amount of milk you're using, you need to add the milk or remove some of the grains. I like to double the milk if it's separated away in curds. I usually try to double the milk that I've been putting in there. Secondly, if your house is warmer and it's fermenting faster, again, you'll need to add more milk or reduce the fermentation time. You don't have to ferment 24 hours if it's doing it fast enough. All that matters is it's turning sour. Then you know it's done. So if you see clear yellowish liquid in curds, little pockets and stuff, it's over fermenting and it's past the thickening stage. So you need to remove the grains and put it in the refrigerator. So that's what's making it separate into whey and curds. Again, it's not bad when it does this. It's just more sour and less appealing. So don't give up. If it's over fermented, there's lots of things you can do. And I have a video that shows you how it happens, what it looks like when it's doing that. So check out this link in the description below, and you'll see the grains over fermenting, turning it away. You'll see what happens and why it's happening. It's kind of cool. And I have a whole bunch of tips and tricks that can help you if your kefir's over sour tasting. So check that out when you get a chance. Now, here's another question. I'm going on vacation. How do I keep my grains alive and happy when I'm gone? So if you're going just for a week, if you're going out of town for a week, place your kefir grains in the amount of milk. Say, if you have a tablespoon of grains, store them in 2 to 3 cups of milk. 3 is better. If you have more than that, whatever you've been doing on an everyday basis, store it in that amount of milk. So say you make a quart of kefir, 4 cups of kefir every day, or 3 cups. Put the grains in fresh milk in 3 to 4 cups and add just a little bit more, add like a half cup more. And that will stay in your refrigerator for 1 week, just like that. Because it'll take a week for it to ferment all the milk out of there in the refrigerator because it slows it down, the cold does. Now, I like to give them a little bit more than I normally do. So whatever you're normally doing on a regular basis, give them fresh milk, put them in the fridge with a little bit more than you normally do, and they'll last 1 week. Now, if it's longer than a week, I recommend freezing the milk or doubling the milk. You can double the milk too. So store them in a jar with the amount of milk you would regularly leave, you would regularly use, and leave a little room at the top because it's going to expand when it freezes. And what I do is I usually use a glass door, but you can use plastic. I use the lid a little loose until it's frozen, and then I tighten the lid just because it expands and it can crack the glass if you don't. And this will store several months in your fridge. So just place your grains in the amount of milk you normally do in the freezer, and they should stay several months. And it takes a little while to wake them up when you get them out of the freezer. But once you've thawed and strained them and given them fresh milk, after a few days, they should be making kefir again. So you need to discard the milk they're in. So when you come home, take them out of the freezer, let them thaw, strain out the grains, put them in fresh milk, and then that milk I usually discard because it's not really kefir. And it's not bad for you, but it's not great either. It doesn't taste great. So freezing kefir grains should only be done like once in a while. It doesn't do it too often because they can diminish a lot. If you freeze and thaw them, it does destroy some of the good bacteria if you do it too much. So once or twice a year is plenty. And it does diminish them a little bit in the freezer. I have noticed that I don't get quite as many when they wake up. So what I do is I add a scoop of Prebio Plus, which is a prebiotic powder, and it helps them wake up. And it takes longer for them to wake up because the prebiotic powder gives them more food, but it does kind of give them a jump start. So that's an option. You don't have to give them prebio. It's a product that I sell on my website. And it's basically inulin, ashaya, and then it's FOS. There's 3 different prebiotic fibers in it that is really good for your kefir and for you. So, and you can get those. You don't have to buy my product. You can get some of these prebiotic products that have inulin in them at many places. And it's really good, but you only give them a pinch. Don't give them a lot because it's too much food and then it takes forever for them to ferment because they're so full and happy that it takes them a long time. Okay, so question number 4. I left my milk kefir grains in the refrigerator for a few months. Are they still good? So this is a good question. So probably not. But let me explain more about this. Kefir grains eat the milk sugars or lactose out of the milk. and that's how they make their probiotics and their bacteria. So this is why the milk gets sour tasting. So when the grains run out of food, they begin to die. So they're living organisms and they need food. So you've got to kind of treat them like a pet and make sure to feed them, even if they've been in your fridge. And don't let them go for over a week without giving them fresh milk. The only way to tell is to try to make a jar of kefir. If the milk turns sour and tart tasting, then the good bacteria is working and your grains should be fine. But don't store them for months on end in your fridge because they probably you'll lose a lot of the strength of your kefir grains and you won't get as many benefits. Okay, I stored my milk kefir grains in the fridge for a week. Is the milk that the grains were stored in okay to drink? Yes, the milk that it was stored in, it's not really kefir because it didn't sit on the counter and get as strong, but it won't hurt you to drink it, but it probably won't taste as good as kefir would. So milk needs, warmer temperatures to really turn into kefir, but it's still going to have some benefits. So always give the grains new milk when you bring them back on the counter to culture. There won't be enough lactose in the milk to culture properly if you don't give them fresh milk. So make sure you do that. Okay, next question. Do I culture milk kefir with a lid or with the cheesecloth? I always culture my kefir with a lid on. I use a 1-quart glass canning jar or a half-gallon one. We make so much kefir. Good night. We have gallons and half gallons. We have all different kinds because we drink so much kefir. But I always use a lid. You can use a plastic lid, I think is best. A metal lid will work fine, but it does deteriorate over time. And many people who use a cloth and rubber band, because there's a lot of people out there telling people to do it with a cloth and rubber band. But I know so many people who got into trouble with this because they get wild yeast or cross-contamination from other cultures, and they get this fuzzy pink yeast on their kefir grains. And it's really not harmful, but it can change the taste of your kefir. So I have always recommended using a lid. Next question. Why aren't my milk kefir grains growing? If you're making kefir every day, your grains should be growing and multiplying. If they aren't, it's because the temperature in your house is cooler than usual, which really slows the drain downs, or your kefir grains have diminished or died. Or you're using dehydrated kefir grains, which I don't recommend. They do make kefir, but they don't grow and multiply. So you're not getting the full benefits from kefir grains if you're using dehydrated ones. If your milk is turning into kefir and becoming sour, your kefir grains are still working, just at a slower rate. So you could either purchase some new grains from a friend if the milk doesn't turn sour, or buy some new ones, because you're really not getting all the benefits you should if they're not doubling every week. If you're making kefir every day, they should be doubling in size every week. Okay, next question. How do I know if my milk kefir grains are still good? The best way to know is they will culture your milk. They will turn it sour and thick within 24 hours, unless they over ferment, because then they could over ferment and still be good. But if it's sour tasting, then it's good. Make sure you have enough grains for the amount of milk that you're using, so that it doesn't separate into whey and curds. Like we said in the first question, it's okay to drink, but it won't be thick. It will be thin. And I've got a video on how to check your kefir grains. It's called the thick and thin of kefir. Okay, next question. How do I second ferment my kefir? Many years ago, when I first started making kefir, I discovered a way to make kefir not only taste better, but also increase the nutrients and the vitamins in it. And it's really one of the only ways I make kefir now because it's so delicious. And the process is called second fermentation. I hate to admit the reason I second ferment my kefir is because it tastes so much better and the nutrients and vitamins will skyrocket. So basically, when you're second fermenting your kefir, you're taking your kefir that's fermented, you get the grains out, and you put a slice of a lemon peel or an orange peel in it. You let it sit on the counter for an hour, and then you place it in your fridge, and the bacteria will eat the nutrients out of the lemon peel or the piece of fruit. You don't want to add a lot. You just want to add a small amount. And I have more details on my website about this. And then it takes that sour taste out of the kefir, but it also makes like the folic acid and the B vitamins skyrocket. So it's a wonderful thing to do to get more nutrients from your kefir. Okay, how do I make my kefir creamy again? If your kefir has been fermenting faster and turning into curds and wheys, in the summertime, this happens a lot. And many people think something's wrong with their kefir, but let me help you fix it. As your kefir grains grow and multiplies, the days get warmer, kefir starts fermenting really fast, and it goes past the thick and creamy stage and turns into the whey and curds. So it doesn't look very appetizing and can taste really sour, but I have a lot of tips on how to make your kefir creamy again. You can add some Prebio Plus to it and shake up the whey and curds and stick it in the fridge. That will often fix the problem to make it creamy again because it just needed more food. Sometimes if it's gone too long, that doesn't always work as well. But that's a huge thing you can do to help make your kefir creamy again. And then don't ferment it as long the next time you make it. Now, a lot of people get really sour tasting kefir, and that is because they're letting it go too long again, so it gets super sour tasting. So during your first ferment, don't let your kefir go as long, and don't let it ferment quickly. Watch it so that it doesn't turn into whey and curds. And if it's super sour, you can add some Prebio Plus to it, which is the supplement that's a prebiotic. You can also, I have recipes. If your kefir's too sour to drink, I have some recipes where what you do is you make a smoothie and you may use half kefir and then half almond milk or coconut milk, regular milk to make your smoothie. You add fruit and it takes away that sour tartness out of your kefir. And you can't even really notice it. It tastes really good. But again, you need to give it some prebiotics to help that sourness dissipate. And I have the description of recipes on my website, and I'll link to that. Okay, next question. How do I strain thick kefir? I love kefir that is thick like yogurt, and it can be very difficult to strain the grains out of when it gets like this. So one of the super easy remedies that I do is when you put it in your strainer, get a rubber spatula and stir that thing. And I have a video to show you how to do it, and stir it in a circle motion and just stir it real fast as you can, and it will strain out through the bottom of the strainer. And I'll, again, go look at the video to see a demonstration. It's super easy. Okay, here's the next question. Why is my kefir slimy? Okay, this is interesting. If your kefir is slimy, then it usually means a couple of things. There probably has been a good chance that your change in your home temperature is happening and your kefir is fermenting faster. And this makes the good yeast start to become more proficient and creates that slimy texture. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that you're not probably giving your grains enough milk or feeding them on a regular basis is usually the reason they get slimy. This can also happen if you keep them in the fridge for long periods of time, and then the yeast start to become dominant instead of the good bacteria. And you have good yeast in there too, so it's not a bad thing. In any case, you just need to give them more milk than you previously giving them. And a prebiotic like Prebio Plus helps to feed them and get them back into balance. If your home is on the warm side, you probably need to ferment for a shorter amount of time or get them in a cooler location. And I have a whole article I wrote about how 7 tips for summer kefir. When your home is warmer, I have ways to keep it cooler and to ferment it and make it taste better. So make sure you check out that link. Okay, next question. Why is my kefir gloopy and stringy? Is it gloppy or gloopy? Gloopy. If kefir gets stringy and gloopy or even like a glue-like consistency, this is actually a good sign that your grains are healthy and growing. But these changes are known as kefirin, and they are gel-forming soluble polysaccharides, and it happens most often in the summer or fall if you're trying a new milk. That's another reason that it can happen. It will change over time and from season to season, coming and going. But this polysaccharide is similar to the same compounds, that you find in starch, cellulose, gum, and glycogen. It's interesting because bacteria, fungi, and algae have all adopted an ability to produce this as a form of protection from drying out. They want to keep reproducing, so they make themselves stringy like this and adhering to the food surfaces more efficiently. So they change in their, texture of the kefir. So kefir can ferment at different textures, but some of the strains of yeast and bacteria will perform better than others, while others will be temporarily suppressed, changing the texture of their kefir in general. So kefir grains, and this is very true of them, they like a stable environment with minimal and gradual temperature changes, which is hard because we have changing seasons. But if kefir start to experience variabilities in temperatures, one day it's hot, the next day it's cool, then it may be grainy, thin, or gloopy. But that doesn't mean it's bad. If you hang on, it will most likely change again. Give it more milk, make kefir on a regular basis, and it will change again. That's just kind of how kefir has a mind of its own. It will do what it's going to do. So I have to let it do its thing, but I just try to accommodate it by giving it, what it needs. Usually it needs more milk. I love winter kefir because it's creamier and thicker than summer kefir because of the cooler temperatures. So it acts differently in the winter than it does in the summer. So that's another good, winter kefir is a creamier consistency, and you'll find that. And it can even take a longer time to ferment because your house is cold. It really likes temperatures about 68, 64 degrees. It likes those temperatures. So I have a whole article about winter kefir if you want to read that, with 7 tips on how to make good winter kefir, because I've been doing this a long time and I know all the tips and tricks because I've just done it so long. Okay. Summer kefir, it does have a mind of its own, and it does ferment differently than winter. So make sure you check out that summer kefir too. And also, can I make dairy-free kefir? Yes, I have seen many people benefit from kefir, including the non-dairy kefirs. A lot of them, there's so many different kinds you can make. So we've created like 16 or 17 recipes to do. Now, not most of the time, non-dairy kefir is thinner than regular kefir. So it separates into whey and curds really easy because most nut milks are made with a lot of water. So don't worry, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's over fermenting. It's just from the water content from whatever seeds or nuts you're using. So that's why it's thinner. Now, I do have a thick nut kefir that's more like yogurt, and you'll have to check that out on this link below on the non-dairy kefirs. Non-dairy still has a lot of probiotics and nutrients, and if it separates, just shake it up and use it. Or check out the thicker non-dairy kefir. You have to use a certain type of nut milk that has the protein in it, and it makes a really creamy, thick nut kefir, and I really like it. It's really delicious. So those are all of my frequently asked questions. I hope that, I can help you. And remember, don't throw out your kefir. If it looks bad or something's wrong, always contact me. You can go to my website at culturedfoodlife.com and hit contact. And we try to answer our emails and help people when they're having trouble. And I know where all the articles are that help you, but I have frequently asked questions about milk kefir at the top where you see start here and it says little smiley pot. I have all kinds of articles for everything you need for how to make kefir, kombucha, cultured vegetables, sourdough, sprouted breads. I have water kefir. I have everything up there. So it's one of the little things on my website that you can go to right away and get your questions answered. So anyway, I just want you to make kefir because the benefits are extraordinary. So whatever I can do to help you, because it's really important to me for you to make good kefir, because it changed my life. So I want it to change your life too, because it's an extraordinary tool to have in your, I call it body hacking. It's going to help your body in ways that you can't even imagine. Because remember, you're 100 trillion bacteria, and you have so many diversities in you, and you want to load that with good bacteria. So in this day and age, we need all the help we can get. So I want to help you to find the ways to make your body healthier, and kefir is one of those ways. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it helps. I have a lot more information on my website, so check out the description below. So I gave you a lot of information. You can go back and look at it. You kind of have it laid out so it's easy to find your question, something that you can, easily find and access if you're having problems. And if not, email me, and then I'll have a new frequently asked question to put on my frequently asked question page, because every time people ask me a question I don't have, I add it to the page so I can help more people. So have a good week, guys, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.